This is the Grapple Show, episode 69, Bronco Billy Wild. Welcome to the Grapple Show. I am your host, Brett Summers, and our special guest this week is the Wild Man of Wearside. It's Bronco Billy Wild. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure. I've watched a few of the shows, so I'm just hoping I can live up to some of the people you've already had on.
No, I'm sure your story will be just as important as theirs, sir. Now, our first question, as I say, you've seen it, so you probably know what question's coming first. Where did it all begin for you? Where did Bronco Billy Wild first start off?
It's going to be pretty long-winded. So I was always a massive wrestling fan. I mean, the first memories of me going on holiday as a kid, going to Butlins, watching the wrestling. Every now and then we'd have like a week in Scarborough during the summer, and my dad would always take us to the wrestling, despite the fact he hated wrestling. But yeah, so I think I probably went to my first shows when I was 4 or 5 years old, so 1991, 92. The first shows I really remember is like around 1993. So I know in 92 or 93, I've got like a signed 8x10 of Big Daddy that I got when I met him. Back then, I think Shirley probably called it a day around 93. So he must have either been on that like last run or the year before. And I specifically remember going to an all-star show in Scarborough, where it was I vaguely, I might have mixed two shows up here, but I definitely remember King Kendo was on, not the real Kendo in Nagasaki. The imposters. So King Kendo was on. I want to say Brookside was on, but the biggest memory I have is seeing Haystacks make his entrance, and I'd never seen anyone that size before in my life, and I was just like, from a small child, like 5, 6 years old, I was hooked. My mom and dad actually moved house recently, so my childhood home has now been sold. So I was rooting through some old keepsakes that I had. Yeah. And amongst them, I found that 8x10 of Big Daddy, and I found the 1993 All-Star program from that tour. It had Mongolia Mauler on. I think Kamala was in it. I don't remember seeing Kamala at the time though. But yeah, I mean, there was a very young Golden Boy Steve Regal. I remember was in there. So there was for me, the first exposure I had to wrestling was British wrestling. And around about the same time, I've vague memories of WCW being on TV, on ITV, in like the afternoons, on a Saturday. So I remember seeing little bits and pieces here and there. We didn't have Sky until like 1997. So I remember begging and pleading with my mom because there was a kid at school. His dad had like Sky Sports, and he would tape all the pay-per-views and stuff. And I'd like borrow the tape a couple of days later. And in 97, we eventually got Sky Sports, which not Sky Sports, sorry, Sky, but we didn't have Sky Sports, which just opened up a completely different world for me. So I'd have like they used to have like Live Wire and Shotgun Saturday on a Saturday morning from like 12 till 2 or 11 till 1, whatever it was. And then there was every Friday night. Obviously, it was the Monday Night Wars, or the Friday Night Wars as it was in UK. And not having Sky Sports, I was obviously a massive WCW fan, so I used to watch a lot of that. And then I just remember religiously scouring through the TV guides, just looking for any wrestling. So back then on old analog Sky, before Sky Digital, we used to get the German channels. I don't know if you remember this. The German channels, yeah, DSF Sport. So DSF Sport used to show a lot of the WCW pay-per-views like a month or so later. So I remember seeing a lot of those that show like random WF pay-per-views from like a few years before. So there was that, and then the big change was I think it was around '98, and I remember just randomly scrolling one. I think it was like a Tuesday evening, and I remember there was two things back to back that changed everything. It was the first one, which was the biggest change, was Bushido. So I don't know if you remember the old UWFI, third
Oh yes,
incarnation, the third incarnation of the UWF. So Yoji Anjo, Gary
Albright.
Albright, guys like
I
that.
knew
Like
you were
I
going to
was a
say that.
huge fan of Gary Albright. Like he was my guy. Takada, Kakahara, like all those guys. I was a huge fan, and that was the only wrestling my dad would like legit sit and watch with me because he was like, "This is the real stuff. These guys are actually, hitting each other." I mean, he didn't have a clue it was a work shoot, but like at the
Yeah,
same time, right after that was the ECW TV show that was on. It was on right afterwards on Bravo.
yeah.
So I would just watch as much wrestling as I possibly could get my hands on. I was buying Power Slam magazine all the time. I think Finn Martin was writing it. So my first like foray into like international wrestling, finding out about FMW and All Japan and New Japan, and I knew a little bit about New Japan because of those early '90s WCW shows because they used to sell like I think it was like Super Bowl one or two or something. Was a cross promotion one, and I remember getting that from Woolworths for my birthday one year.
Hmm.
Um, so I was just an absolute sponge. I was completely obsessed with it. I'd watch any wrestling from anywhere, and it was that was me through school. I was just like the kid who was just obsessed with wrestling. Then I left school, went through college. I got involved in other things like music and so on. But I'd always played sports since I was a kid, like boxing, cricket, football. I was quite good at rugby. So I've always been quite like athletic. And then when I was about 20, 21 or so, I decided to give wrestling like a try. And I'd searched all over, like in that like interim time from being in school onwards. The only place I could find to train was Hammerlock, which was just too far away. I mean, I was a kid. There was no way I could get there. So eventually, around 2007, I found this place in Gateshead called the IWF, which is where Pac started. So I had a little foray into it there. Trained for about 6 months. And then I remember, I think I had some type of injury. I think I like rolled my ankle or something. But at the same time, I was like, I'd started uni later. I'd worked as soon as I'd like left college. So I decided at that time I wanted to go to university, go back to uni. So I started uni about the same time. Wrestling went on the back burner. Again, played sport all the way through uni. Played American football, playing normal like football all pretty much like 2 or 3 nights a week. So I kept like active, and then the worst possible thing that happens to anyone is I got sucked into hospitality. So I ended up becoming a chef, and that just takes over your life. And that was me for the next like 10, 12 years up until I was in my 30s. But wrestling had gone away and came back. There was times where I was like still watching it a lot, and then there was times probably after I'd kind of had me little dipped my toes in it a bit. There was times after that when I was just kind of went off wrestling, and it was just not really a priority for me anymore. The product wasn't really interesting me, and then when I was in the early 30s, uh, around it was actually around 2019. I got very very sick, like very very unwell, um, and I ended up um, becoming very, very ill for like a few months. And this was just before COVID, so it was around about Christmas time 2019. And prior to that, I'd still been going to boxing, going to the gym, sparring like a couple, 3 times a week. Um, and then when I'd got better, I remember talking to uh, my best friend Andy and his brother, like who were like family to me. They basically Christopher, the younger brother, was like, "Oh, I've been training at Battle Ready, which is with Primates, Jay Melrose." So he said, "You should come along. Like you always like doing like sporty things and stuff. You're not doing anything at the moment." I'd already realized I was not going to be able to box so much longer because the younger kids were so much faster than me. I was getting old. I was getting slow, so I was getting whooped all the time. So I was like, yeah, yeah. So I put it off, put it off, put it off. And then eventually I was like, okay, right, I'm gonna go down one day. So I went down with them and it was in Dynamic Skate Park in the back of the skate park in Gateshead, right just like 2 minute walk from the end of the Time Bridge. And I remember just going in and just feeling like so out of place. Like I'm like so much older than everyone else. Um I mean, I just felt like I'm not doing the right thing here. I don't really, and my cardio, my conditioning was the the worst it's ever been because I just came back from being ill. So I ended up sticking it out for a few weeks, and then it was till about March, I think, was when the first lockdown happened.
Hmm.
And during lockdown, obviously the gym shut. That first like lockdown anyway, and we ended up just keeping in touch with the guys from the gym, just doing like school sessions. So Jay was still in NXT UK at the time, so he was having school sessions with like Regal and that every week. So then he would basically just copy what he was doing with them guys and then do it with us. Just have discussions, watch matches. So we'd watch some old World of Sports stuff like Pete Roberts and things like that, and then we'd watch like you know bigger matches like WWE stuff, and you try and find out what's working and what's not, and we just discuss it. And obviously, people have very different opinions on wrestling, and you find out, well, why do you think this is rubbish? Well, I think this is great, like so on and so forth. And then the lockdown got lifted, and He'd moved the gym to another premises, so it was moved to South Shields, which was a little bit easier for me to get to because I was living in Sunderland at the time. And when we were in this new building, it was essentially we went in and there was a very brief period where we were allowed to train. It was supposed to be social distance as well, so we were doing little bits here and there, but it was mainly just working on cardio. So it was a lot of CrossFit to it, and we were doing a lot of functional fitness type of stuff. We'd go on a Sunday and just do like strength training, like the strongman stuff, but we still weren't really like properly allowed to wrestle. Um, and then that's when I met Mickey Limerick. He'd came one Sunday because I believe it was him and Max there that had been talking, and they were like, "Oh well, like we need to go somewhere and have like a train. Like, do you know anywhere that's got like a ring?" He's like, "Oh yeah, Jay's got a ring." So like they just went down, and ended up getting chatting to Mickey straight away. I was like, I knew this guy was like somebody else. Like he's experienced, like work in the camps. His whole philosophy on wrestling is exactly what I'd always thought wrestling was about. So Mickey essentially ended up taking over training. Jay was more focused on the CrossFit side of things. And when Jay was in charge, or rather running the training, because I was older and he's obviously WWE, don't think Jay saw anything in me, just saw an older guy, 33 years old, whatever. And he just thought, I was just kind of stuck with the beginners for like ages. But Mickey just when Mickey started, it was like a completely fresh slate. So we ended up trading, and then during that period of time, whether we should or shouldn't have been because of the social distancing or whatnot, we ended up just going into the gym when like on a night. Just essentially, there was only really the hardcore that were there. So there was 4 or 5 of us. We were there like 4 nights a week, just wrestling, fitness, wrestling, fitness, wrestling, fitness, just constantly, constantly. during those times as well, there's a big staircase in South Shields, like that goes from the top of the hill all the way down to the beach. And on like Saturdays or whatever, when we weren't wrestling, we'd just go there and just do flights of stairs for like an hour. So at that point, like my cardio felt like excellent, and I was in like really decent nick. Um, and we were just like I said, there was me, there was Mickey, Jake, so Tommy Freeman, Chrissy Decker, there was Paddy Griffin. So there was us four essentially just there, just between us and Mickey. It was just us, just working every day, wrestling. And I was so far behind everyone else. But because I've always believed the only way you can get better at something is being around people that are better than you. So I essentially was just dragged up to a different level just by the sake of the fact that I was around these guys. And it just became like it just became my life at that point. I knew at that point that wrestling was where I was going to go, and I was just going to dedicate everything to it. Because it was just a huge. It was just I'd always had that itch I wanted to scratch after I'd left it, like when I was like 2021. And I think because I'd never followed through on it, and then I went back later, I've always thought it was kind of on borrowed time. So I knew that, like, if you can't stop, like, you can't just like give it up or whatever. You've just got to be there all the time. You've got to work harder than everyone else because you're so far behind everyone else with age. You've got a limited shelf life of how long you're going to be able to do this for. So yeah, worked solid for till about the end of 2021. And then there was some shows starting around about then. I did a couple of manager spots before I was ready to wrestle. Did some gym shows. Did like a
What was that
run.
like though? Because like you say, you've been putting all that time in the gym, you've been doing the training, you've got all these people around you now. That's great, but when there's people there, it makes it a different story, doesn't it? Like when there's that crowd there. What was that like? That can you remember that first walkout, even as a manager at that point, as you said, that was the first thing. What was that like? Because I've seen,
Uh,
like you probably have, you've seen great people in the gym that suddenly in front of a crowd are not as great, or it doesn't translate, type thing. What was that like for you?
Honestly, it felt like the most natural thing in the world.
Good.
Because I knew, there's if there's one thing I hate, I think this is why showing out has always been like one of my strengths. Is I hate silence. Like when you're wrestling, it's mad because obviously I'm going to Japan, but I hate silence. So I'd always, if the crowd's in a lull, I'd want to like just have a go at them and get them to have a go at me. Just make some noise. And I've always been a bit of a show off and a bit of a attention hog or what have you. So the fact that I can like just get a reaction out of people was cool as well. So it's one of those things that came quite naturally to me. And being in front of crowds when I was younger and I was in bands, I used to get terrible stage fright. I used to hate being in front of people when I was playing my guitar. I'd have my head down like this. Um, and then just for some reason in wrestling, it was just a completely different experience. I think being in hospitality and working as a chef for so long made me really confident about communicating in front of like the brigade when you're obviously in the kitchen. Um, so it was just the that kind of like nervousness or anything like that just completely just melted away the second I got out there, and I knew that like really like my job is to look stupid. So I was a villain obviously, so that's the best thing about being a villain. You can't do anything wrong. If you do something right, you're meant to do it. If you do something wrong, well, so what, you get the reaction anyway, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? So yeah, it was a huge thing, like just doing those little first spots until eventually there was some injuries. Someone dropped out, and I ended up getting to work like some of the shows that I still do to this day. So my first proper match was me and Vito Peru versus Tiny Iron and Tommy Freeman. And me and Tommy Freeman, obviously Jake, have been working together in the gym for the last 2 years, so we had our stuff down. Um, Vito had worked a double that day, so he didn't really want to talk about the second match until he'd finished his first match. So I was a little bit nervous about that. And obviously, me and Jake planned a load of stuff, and he came back and was like, "Yeah, we're not going to do any of that. We're going to do this instead." I was like, "Okay, right." So and then it was just, I just I've never felt like I was like happier than doing that because it. I just take bits that I'd seen when I was growing up. So Tiny Iron's a huge guy. I mean, I'm a big guy. I'm like 6'3". I weigh about 140 kilo at the minute. At the time, I was a little bit light. I was probably about 115, 120. Um, and it just meant I could play like, excuse me, French, the chicken shit heel. I could beg off. I could do all those flare spots and that, and just be like, and then cheat. I got the opportunity to do that, so I loved it. Like and instantly at that point, I was just hooked. I was in. I was, no matter what was happening right now, I was going to be a wrestler moving forward. So yeah, it was. That was in 2021. At the end of 2021, it was the last show of that like run, and it picked up again the following February, and then forever since then, I've pretty much been an ever present in that team and being around obviously the same guys that have been around the last few years. So obviously me, Tommy, and Chris broke in together into that team. Um, they go in maybe a show or two before me. Um, Vito Peru, who is an outstanding and underrated worker. Um, Mickey, absolutely brilliant. At the time, Dean Allmark was on the team before his injuries. Uh, just the chance to be around like some really, really top quality workers and learn all the time. I knew where my spot was going to be. I was the older guy. I was the least experienced of everyone, so I was going to be working tiny pretty much non-stop those next few years in tags and handicap matches and what have you, and just doing rumbles. But for the next year, that's pretty much what I did on those shows, and I just found a way to get better doing a very limited match, like just finding different ways of making it even just exciting for me to do because you can only do the same match so many times. So just changing it up here and there. Yeah, we weren't going to go out and have a 20-minute classic every night, but we could do 8 minutes and get the crowd really reacting, and that's where I kind of honed what I did until I thought I was ready to take the next step and move forward and start having some real proper quality wrestling matches, move into tags and so on. At that point, my tag team partner had kind of got onto the team, Paddy, who had been training with us back in the day. So we just, from then on, it was just kind of like I just got to work loads of different people here and there doing tags. We had a really long year run with the Supersonics. So it was me and Paddy versus Callum Andrews, not the one from PPW, our Callum Andrews, and Ricky Matthews, and we got to do a lot of like matches. Some of them were like getting the 30, 35, 40 minutes long, like just every Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express spot you can possibly think of, all those Tennessee spots, anything that I'd ever seen just got stolen and put in those matches. And that really helped us move forward in terms of getting a really good wrestler. And then every now and then I get to have a little singles run with like Mickey. And me and Jake had a few good matches, but there was some massive downtimes as well. There was a day. It was actually in that 2022. It was early in 2022. I'd had a really bad injury, like I had a massive concussion. I went backwards over the top rope, and when I'd landed on the floor, there was some like water or something, like liquid or something on the floor, and my heels have hit the floor, and I'd basically done a double 360 and smashed the back of my head off the floor. Yeah, I didn't know where I was. I got post concussion syndrome. Had to have loads of time off work. I was really, really ill. And by the time I came back, I was just fat and out of shape. At the same time, like my partner at the time, she was pregnant with my first child, and I was just, I came back thinking, oh, I'll just jump straight back into this, not realizing that I was like so far behind. And I had a match with Eccentrico in Rill, which might go down as the worst match in the history of Rill Town Hall. It was absolutely abhorrent. And I remember sitting there, and it wasn't his fault. It was me. It was all me. I was out of shape. I couldn't hear his calls. I wasn't like following it. I was just nervous. I was all out of sorts. I remember just sitting in the pizza shop, and everyone's like, "Hi." They've had like high on like obviously having like a great show on that, and there's me just sitting there eating me kebab wrap, just like thinking, "Is this for me? Don't know." I mean, I was ready to call it a day at that point. But then I think like I realized like I knew what it was going to be like coming into this, and I think the one thing you have to be very good in wrestling is you have to be an absolute mentality monster. Like if you can't deal with the travel, if you can't deal with getting hurt, if you can't deal with setbacks, then you're really going to struggle in this. And I've seen people who were unbelievable athletes, people who were just natural wrestlers, and if as soon as your mentality goes, or you lose the love for it, or you start second guessing yourself, you can just fall off a cliff quickly. And I realized at that point that like I was going to have to, really claw my way back to where I was before. Um, and I can't remember how long it was later. It was a few months later. I had the exact same match. It was in Scunthorpe, against Eccentrico. And just prior to that, I'd wrestled Tommy Freeman at Middlesbrough Town Hall, and we had an absolute banger, like excellent match, one of the best matches I'd ever had. Um, and the crowd were electric, and Eccentrico was watching the match. And then when we got to Scunthorpe, which was a few weeks later or whatever, he just basically was like, "That's the match I want to do with you, the match that you've done with him." So we adjusted obviously what we were doing to suit what he would do. And we essentially did the same thing, and the match was absolutely fantastic, apart from nearly dying when he gave us a swanton bomb, and not one part of him landed on the mat, and every single pound of him went straight through my ribs. And I remember just hearing him say to the ref, "Check to see if he's alive." Crawls to the back, gets through the curtain, and there's Ricky Knight and Zach, and they're trying to pull us up to my feet, like, "You need to stand up, you need to get some air in you." I'm like, Get away! I just want to lie on the floor and just die for a bit." But yeah, it was. I think, yeah, having those setbacks and then managing to overcome them is like the biggest things. That has really helped us to get forward.
Definitely. I mean, what would you say then? Because people listening to this on this podcast will say we do the pro wrestling, we do the sheep wrestling, catch, judo, jiu-jitsu, and all that. And we have covered this before, but every time it could be someone's first podcast they're listening. People might be listening to this and saying, "But isn't pro wrestling, isn't everything kind of fake?" And you're saying all this and these struggles, but you're not winning a match and you're not winning a championship. What would you say on that? Because obviously we know the grind that goes behind it, and you just talked about that. But some people seem to get it in a winning, losing, MMA, UFC kind of thing or whatever. But like, there's a lot more to it than that, and it's one of those things when you try and explain it to someone who I don't know. It's almost like you know what I mean? It's that thing that people get it or they don't. But what would you say to that sort of thing?
The only thing fake about wrestling is the result. All the injuries are real. All the miles you've got to travel in the car is real. Um, Fair enough, you're working with each other as opposed to against each other in the ring, but them, it's physically demanding. I mean, like, especially when you're doing a run, like when you've got like 6 weeks and you're wrestling every day, sometimes a couple of times on each show. Um, there's not many people. I don't care what sport you come from. Like, if you're a boxer or an MMA, you might fight a couple of times a year. You might spar all the time, but no one's trying to take each other's head off. Um, but like, there's not many people can take the punishment of doing that twice a day, every day for weeks on end. And I don't. And we've got the easy part. Those guys that were doing it like 10 years ago, even that were working basically full time, as in like doing hundreds and hundreds of matches a year. I mean, I only average about I mean, last year I did what 182 matches, and I know there was guys just even a few years ago, pre-pandemic, that were doing well in excess of that, 300 matches a year. Um, so you've got to be able to take a battering, and the hardest part of it's probably the travel because there is no time to heal. I mean, you 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 might take a kicking in the match, you might take a bad bump, but then I mean, I've seen Mickey break his ankle on a show and then have to drive 7 hours to get us home, like with a broken ankle. No complaints. He just did it. Like, there's not many people that are cut out for that. Like, it takes that type of mentality of like, I wouldn't do this unless I absolutely loved it, and if everyone could do it, you would. If you were a fan and you could do it, you would do it. But there's a lot of people come through training schools, and there's a lot of people try to get in the business, and it only takes a couple of sessions, and they just think the same for me. It's quite simply the most demanding sport I've ever played. It's not even a sport if you want to call it that, but it's the most demanding thing I've ever done. I mean, I boxed for a number of years, obviously sparring a few times a week. That was like cardio intense, and yeah, you take a little shot here and there, and you might get the odd knock on the head or what have you. But essentially, you're not taking the punishment that you are doing this. And don't get me wrong, when them guys are fighting for real, they are trying to knock each other's head off. But that's not all the time. Fair enough if you're an amateur boxer and you're boxing like hundreds of amateur matches before you turn pro, that's a little bit different. But those, even then, those amateur matches, they're only a few rounds long. They're not long matches. Um, so yeah, I think anyone that is a fan of wrestling would appreciates what goes into it, and anyone that's even stepped foot in it really appreciates what's went into it. And at the same time, like, anyone that isn't a fan or tries to look down or like, for example, when you go to work and like, oh well, what do you do for your hobbies or for fun or what have you? Oh yeah, I'm a pro wrestler. Well, they'll like sometimes loathe to mention it because you know what questions are coming next. Um, Usually it's, oh, I know a wrestler and it's someone absolutely terrible. Or it'll be, oh, isn't that fake? And you're like, yeah, well, you watch like, Marvel films. Isn't that fake? Like, why are you watching that? It's for kids. It's crap. Like, to me, like, Marvel is just awful, but all films are fake. You know what I mean? If you find entertainment in that, good for you. Great. I find entertainment in wrestling. That's just how we are.
No, no, good point. No, 'cause that's something I think people, the grind of it, especially like the TV side of it. I think everyone seems to think, and I think as well the production level of it nowadays, especially WWE and things like that. I think a lot of people almost think it's the same place every week because it always looks the same nowadays. They don't appreciate the distance between everything and the grind, and also like the psychological side. I mean, what used to get me sometimes would be the things you missed because you were doing the wrestling when I used to
Hmm.
do it. You know, you'll be in a car somewhere and it's someone's birthday or an anniversary or wedding or whatever, all those the little things like that that sort of play on you as well.
Yeah, the sacrifices can be the worst part, actually. Like, I mean, I've spent the majority of the last 5 years away from home, like I'd say. Um, I'm no longer with the mother of my child, and obviously we have split custody and what have you. But there'll be times when I'm supposed to have him and he's at my mum's because I've got to be away. Like, I've missed a lot of him growing up, and we all do with our kids, and a lot of us do have children. We don't get to see them as much as we like, and no one doesn't miss their children. Like, the sacrifices are like immense. Um, Girlfriends, obviously, like when you're away from home, like you want to be with them, you want to talk to them, and want to see them. But I mean, sometimes on a show day, I might not get 10 minutes to myself. I might get like 15 minutes here, want to make a call, but essentially, I'm not on my schedule. I'm on whatever needs to be done schedule. If we arrive somewhere, I can't really talk in the car. If I've got six other people in the car with me and we're listening to music and what have you, I'd be pretty selfish if I'm trying to have a personal phone call or what have you. Um, and then you you get to a venue, you've got to do the ring job. You've got other duties that you have to fulfill. You might have to go for food. You might want to go tan. You might want to go to the gym. Stuff that everyone wants to do. You kind of get dragged along to do, even if you don't want to do it. So the sacrifices are massive, especially when you're doing the those kind of camp show, town show runs. Like they're they're quite taxing, and when you get home, it doesn't end there. You've got at least a couple of days of trying to recover and get back into routine, and it's and that's just from what I've experienced. Like I say, those guys that were doing it a few years ago, they had it much worse. I mean, they would when obviously All Star had their digs, there were people just living at those digs, like for year round, like just living there. They wouldn't have a lot else going on except wrestling. I mean, you have to have that kind of like obsessive mentality if you want to do well in this. And I know the job's changed, and I know there's a different side of the job now, and not everyone has to do it the way we do it. And there's obviously the indie side of things, and I've got nothing against those people, and I think what they do, some of them are excellent. Um, and some of the production of some of these indie shows is just out of this world. But at the same time, the that's the way I've came in, and like I wouldn't trade it for any other way. I've learned and been around some of the best possible people I could. Spent the last 3 years getting to have like, in my opinion, there's two fantastic wrestlers in this country. I mean, I'm not saying there's just two, but the two best wrestlers, in my opinion, in this country are Mickey Long, Mickey Limerick, whatever you want to call him, and Joel Redman. And I've managed to have dozens of matches with both, and they're both excellent in their own ways. And I wouldn't have got to do that if I was just like a weekend warrior, like doing a show once a week here and there. It's one of those things where I've had to really get those sacrifices to get in a position where I was given those opportunities, and you can't not get better working with people that are better than you all the time.
Definitely. So you've established yourself. Then you're on the team now, as you say. You're doing these tours. Um, what's that like when you finally get there? Because obviously you've been trying to do this, you've been getting the training. You were saying like the oldest, you're putting the time in and all that sort of thing, and you're on there now. You've gone for the manager. You're on the shows. You're pretty much you've got your team membership card now. You're on the bus. You're doing it all. What's it like when you get there now? Is it what you think it's going to be? Because obviously, growing up in your days, you have these sort of romanticized versions of what it might be, but now you're there and you're on the grind, and you're still going now. So obviously it went well, but like
Yeah.
kind of, but like what's it like when you get there? What are you doing once you get there? What do you have to do to stay there?
Well, see, when I started, I've always had realistic goals, right? I was never a pie in the sky type of guy. Like I say, I knew I had a shelf life. Um, so I would always make an achievable goal that I could hit. So when I first went to training, it was like I'd like to have one match. And it was great. Managed to get through all that. And then eventually when I started doing those little town shows here and there, I was like, I'd love to work for All Stars. The first promotion I ever saw. It's the standard bearer for wrestling in this country for the last 56 years, I think it is now.
Yeah, something like that, more than
Um,
that probably. Yeah,
yeah, I think it
I'll
started in
stop count.
1970 or
Yeah,
69, I think also started.
uh, I've stopped counting things now. It scares me now.
So 56 years. So I was like, I knew I
Yeah,
wanted to be on All Star because there's a there's something to be said about if you've been a member of the All Star team. A lot of people have been in and out, but there's something to be said if you've been a member of the All Star team.
yeah.
Um, so I managed to achieve that. I was obviously Butlins was another one I wanted to do. I was just like, I'd love to wrestle at Butlins. I managed to do that for the last 2, 3 years, and then I wanted to. The next goal was I'd love to start wrestling internationally. I did that last year. I managed to get to 3 different countries last year. So for me, it's always been about what's next. Like it's great doing what you're doing, and there's times when it's really hard, but like unless you're looking forward, you'll end up you don't want to stand still. Essentially, if you want to keep your place, you've got to keep getting better. And there's times when I feel like I'm regressing. There's times when I feel like I'm on fire. There's times when I feel like my my cardio is just not up to scratch. There's times when I feel like I'm the best I've ever felt cardio wise. It's a constant ebb and flow of like of of trying to just push forward. Like getting good and progressing is never just this. There's always like peaks and troughs, and it's the same with getting strong. You never just continuously get strong. You've got to back off a little bit, let yourself heal, get stronger again. It's I've always looked to what's next. Like how am I going to reach the next goal that I want to get to? Um, and setting realistic goals has obviously allowed us to just keep a focus on where I want to go. So yeah, it was amazing getting on the All Star team, and I remember it wasn't the first show I did for All Star, but what that first run, or maybe it was the second run I did for All Star. I managed to work for Brian before Brian passed uh, at um at New Brighton, which was a huge honour because obviously we were working the main event. Uh, it was me and Mickey. I think we were against. I want to say we were against Chrissy and Tommy Freeman. Um, but essentially, it was Brian's hometown show, obviously. So it's like the Wirral. Um, New Brighton is obviously it's an unbelievable venue. I've never been the biggest fan of stage shows, but New Brighton's just something special. It's always packed out. Like there's hundreds of people there. It's like an All Stars spiritual home has always been like Birkenhead, like that type of area. Um, so like getting to do that and seeing Brian at the show at that time, that was a huge honor for me. I'd worked shows for All Star before, but I think Brian had kind of backed off on his road management duties at the time. He was kind of working mainly out of the office. Um, So it's sometimes, yeah, it's great to stand and smell the roses every now and again and think, "Oh, you know what, this is great." And there was a lot of times when we might finish a run and we'll just have a chat, like me and a couple of the lads, and we'll just say, "Do you know what? Like, I'm really proud of what we've done. I really feel like we're all just on fire at the moment, or we're all getting a lot better and really proving that we are as good as we say we are." But you have to be able to think forward. Like there's, it's at the stage now where obviously I wanted to go and do other things. I'll always be an all-star guy. In my heart, I'll always be an all-star guy. Whenever all-star will call for me to go and do a job for them, I'll always be there. Um, but now I want to go try something over,
Yeah.
in a
But
different place. Yeah.
I was going to say, well, you just mentioned as well about like traveling abroad. So you went to three different countries. So where was that? What was it like?
Oh,
Where'd
yeah.
you go? What were the styles like? Because different countries have different styles, and what was that like for you and being able to adapt or take in or etc.
So the moving, obviously, it was at the end of 2024. I'd made that goal of like, right, that's what's going to be next. So I just started putting the feelers out here and there. Um, I knew a few people that had been to certain places, and I just reached out to Slam in Finland, uh, and spoke to Starbuck. Fortunately, a guy that he had on his show, I think they were having a child maybe, and so they didn't know if he was going to be at the show or not. So he invited me to come and do the show. So I did like 3 days over there, which normally they don't do these like tours or anything, but getting to do a few shows, and he looked after us very well. I got to meet some really amazing people there. Giant Valletta, obviously the Maltese wild man, who is like I'm a fan of his gimmick. I love it. I got to meet Michael Fuchs and Eric Lasek, the guys from Poland. So I got to meet people from different places, which was great. Um, the styles, because everyone, I'd say the majority of the people that were doing that show were actually people that weren't from Finland. So I wrestled the first show. I wrestled Mick Vineler, who's a big guy from Estonia. And the second show, it was me and Gianni Belletta versus Starbuck and McVineland in a tag match. The first show was excellent, really packed house. Um, just it was brilliant. I think they were doing some type of pay-per-view for like Fight TV or something at the time. The second show was kind of in an unusual place, like it was in the middle of kind of nowhere. So there wasn't a very good draw, but it was fun to work Starbuck and it was fun to work with Gianni Valletta. So that was like my first foray into it. I'd had a bunch of discussions over the course of the year with Fabio Ferrari about potentially going out to Italy. At the time, the travel wasn't going to work because I was going to go earlier on in the summer, um, because Fabio runs a fantastic promotion in Italy, and I think it's like is it Pescara it is on the east coast. So eventually I got to go there. That was unusual because I wrestled outdoors the week before Christmas. Um, got to wrestle Fabio, who was really really fun to work. It was an okay crowd. Obviously, the weather wasn't great, so I think a few people got scared off. But like it was a pretty decent show. Um, and I got to go to Germany thanks to my partner. Lucy ended up she I think she'd wrestled earlier on in the year in Germany, and they'd asked her to go to Unlimited. And she just put me forward. She's like, "Oh, like, my boyfriend there, he wrestles, what have you." And they didn't know anything about me when I turned up, so it was kind of unusual. They put me with this guy called Chris Titan. He's big old boy. Like they just said, just go out and have a hoss fight. And I was like, I can do that, no problem.
Yeah.
Just go out and batter each other, and we had like 10 minutes. We had a lot of fun. Um, so it's good. One the main thing I got was something I got told when I was actually in Finland on my first show was we were just talking about how many matches have you had, like where have you been working, what have you, and I tell them what I've been doing. I wasn't fudging it either. I was like telling them legit how many matches I'd had in those few years, and they'd be like, "Oh well, like we wrestle like once a month or whatever, or maybe a couple of times, or we might have to go between like Poland and Germany, or they might wrestle like 30 times a year max." And I remember Gianni Valletta when I told them, and they were just like kind of shocked. Gianni Valletta just went, "You don't understand. The guys in England are spoiled, and we are. We 100% are spoiled. Like we have a very very healthy scene over here. Like from no matter what type of wrestling you're into, if you're into like the more family friendly shows, the All Star the shows, like town shows, that camp style stuff. There's plenty of work for everyone. If you're into the more serious indie stuff, you got your Rev Pros, your Progress, your North, your ICW. Like those shows are still doing very well. Um, and then there's obviously a lot of smaller independent shows where people are just kind of cutting their teeth. And then at the moment there's kind of like this Brit Death revival or whatever it is. It's not really my thing, but all power to you. They seem to be getting a bit of traction. What have you? I mean, I see Jack Harrop popping up a lot of places, and he looks like he's a very charismatic lad. Iceman's son. Um, so we have an array of different styles of shows over here. Whatever you like, whatever you're into wrestling, you are catered for in the UK, and I don't think we really truly respect how good we've got it. Um, so it's that was the biggest eye opening thing for me. It wasn't about what was going on there; it was about really appreciating what we had over here.
Oh, no, that's interesting. Yeah, because I mean, I ducked out when did I 2008? I ducked out, and then I only got back into it again the last couple of years properly. And yeah, the difference now, like, because there are always shows around, don't get me wrong, but the quality is definitely like in the sort of 18 years in between, the quality has definitely come up, and it's good to see, and there's so many more people now I need to catch up on. That's what I keep various people like flatlining out, and I'm twisting his ear off, going, "Well, what happened to him? Who are they? Where's that?" It's almost like I've missed like a couple of films in the middle, and I'm trying to join the dots now of where what's been kept gone and come out,
That's
and it's
exactly
good to
that's
see
exactly
it
how
all.
I felt.
Yeah,
I'd
yeah,
spent
and
a lot
it's
of time kind of not being interested in wrestling, and from like I say, when I first trained to eventually like gradually getting into it again, we had that kind of British boom, I suppose, which was in the mid 2010s. So when you had like WCPW, ICW, Progress, all doing well and like getting like exposure, and obviously WWE came in and they made NXT UK, and there was a World of Sport revival thing going on. But really, I think that was kind of, a lot of people think that was what ruined the scene. I think that's what made the scene, to be honest. I think what's happened since then is you've seen a lot of those people that were, it's like, it just kind of like thinned the herd. It got rid of a lot of people to give them opportunities to go elsewhere, which meant a lot of more people could come up and raise their
I'm
game
up.
and really
Yeah,
make a name for themselves. And I think, I mean, look at what's happened in the last few years. I mean, you see guys like, I mean, look how well Leon Slater's doing. You know what I mean? I see Leon Slater and he's absolutely killing it. He's one of the most exciting wrestlers in the world. He was in my second ever managerial role match I ever did. I managed the guy against Leon Slater, and I remember just sitting on the outside, like going, I know I'm supposed to be doing something with the crowd right now, but my jaw is on the floor. Like
yeah.
this kid was just special from day one. Like, you could see it, everyone could see it. Um, Nathan Angel, obviously, Joel's trainee, he's doing fantastic. He's obviously got himself signed. He's over at NXT UK. Harley Hudson doing brilliant. She's over in TNA right now. Um, Saxon and Will Cruz, both, doing well in Noah. And I think Cruz is now obviously going to WWE. Same with that Ray and Leverkusen. So, I think it's always good when the whole scene's doing well, because it brings attention to the
Yeah,
UK
down there,
scene. The people
rising
can move
tides
on,
and
and
all
then more
that.
people
Yeah,
come up. Exactly, yeah. It's
yeah, 100%. But what's next for Bronco Billy then? What other targets do you have now? I know you got to, as this drops, you'll be setting foot on foreign shores again. So what you got planned, sir?
so. As I mentioned earlier on, obviously, UWF5 was a huge thing for me when I was a kid. It was really my first foray into like Japanese wrestling. I became a huge All Japan fan and a huge Noah fan. I remember when we first started training, and Jay was like, "If you don't want to get to WWE, then obviously I don't know what you're doing here. Like, that should be everyone's goal." And I was like, "It ain't my goal." I was like, "I've never wanted to go to WWE. And first of all, I'm too old to not be interested in me. And second of all, like, it's just not what I want to do." I always wanted to go to Japan. Like, that was number one, like from day one. Pipe dream. Will it ever happen? I'd very much doubt it. Pipe dream to go to Japan. So I fly next week to Japan. I'm going to Kyushu Pro Wrestling. So Kyushu Pro is based in Fukuoka, and that is like the most southern island of the main four islands. So I'm like quite a ways away from Tokyo. I'm going to go there. We've got a number of shows over that period of time. I'm going there for like 9 weeks. Um, and for the rest of the time, I'll just kind of be in the dojo every day. At the moment, Shreddy's over there. Shreddy's working for the same promotion. When I go over there, that first month, I'll be with someone I know as well, because Lewis Basham, who is an absolutely outstanding talent that's coming through at the moment, just a powerhouse. Like, the kid looks amazing. He's going there with us. Fortunately, after a month, he won't be there, so I won't be completely overshadowed by the other guys for the entire time I'm going to be in there. Um, but yeah, it's just a dream that I've always wanted to go out. It's something I was working on last year. I'd seen Saxon. I'm friends with Saxon. I think he's just the sweetest, nicest guy. And I'd kind of be mithering him, mithering Joel. How do I get to Japan, man? How do I get to Japan? And Joel would kind of give us information to get in touch with certain people to go to all Japan. And I'd, you know, kind of doors kept getting shut here and there. And I just said, where else is there to go? And then he goes, well, why don't you try like Tajiri's place? So Tajiri doesn't run it. I think he does the training. Um, but I was like, yeah, I'll do that. Gave them a shout and heard nothing back. So I sent them an email, got nothing back. And I remember sitting there and seeing other people go to Japan and this, that, and the other. I remember getting really, really cross about it. I was just like, I'm every bit as good as these people. Like, why am I not getting the shout to go here? So I messaged them again. I was like the whole 9 yards. Like, here's all the match footage. Here's the promo shots and what have you. I'm like really experienced. I'm not just some like strobe who's trying to get himself in without having any experience. And they just messaged back saying like, we already replied to you like months ago. Like, go check your spam email. I was like, oh my god, I just
Oh,
made myself look an absolute div. So ended up working that out. That ended up becoming an offer to go over in April. So I'll be there from April 2nd, April 3rd till first week of June. And I'm going to be, like I say, based in Kyushu, doing shows for them. I have been given permission to go and get shows elsewhere um, in any time that I have off. So I'm going to try and have some forays elsewhere. So I'm currently discussing with a couple of different promotions about potentially going up to Tokyo in that area, Kawasaki, places like that. The one promotion that I really wanted to work for, apart from Kyushu, unfortunately, I couldn't. I've messaged my all-time wrestling heroes, Kenta Kobashi. Like, he is the god of wrestling as far as I'm concerned. He's running a show the day before my 40th birthday. And it's so he runs Fortune Dream. They don't run very often, they run a few shows a year. So I messaged Kabashi's people and I was just like, if there's any way you can get me on, they're like, unfortunately you can't. Like, the card's all been sorted. But either way, I'm gonna go up and watch that show. So I'll try and get some work elsewhere in around. I just kind of want to. The idea is for this is as much as like I really want to do well for Kyushu Pro, and I'm looking essentially. I really want a home in Japan somewhere I can go back to time after time, um, and just kind of make that leap forward of making a go of Japan. So if I can go back to Kyushu all the time, that'd be absolutely amazing. I'd love to do it. Um, but if I can obviously go to other places and there's any other opportunities that pop up, I'll be sure to get on them. I'm going to just basically, I'm shooting my shot. It's all I can do. I'm 40 years old in literally 2 weeks' time. So this is the last throw of the gauntlet essentially for me to do anything with this job. I've achieved everything I've ever wanted to achieve in wrestling, and I've done it in a relatively short space of time because, like I say, I set realistic goals. The pipe dream was to get to where I'm literally going to be. So anything after this is a massive bonus. I mean, there's other places I'd like to go after this potentially. I've never really had that much of an interest in going to America, but maybe in a year or two's time. I'm friends with Silas Mason, the NWA World Champion. So I might discuss with him about potentially see if he can pull a few strings and get me in NWA. I don't know, maybe. Uh, but but yeah, there's essentially. I think next maybe I'd really like to go to Puerto Rico. I think that'd be pretty cool. I hear Puerto Rico's getting quite
yeah.
hot at the moment. But plus, I've always looked at myself as a bit of a wrestling historian, like in those old territories, like the places I've
Oh,
always wanted to go.
yes.
Puerto Rico, potentially getting rocks thrown off you and stabbed off for fans. That sounds great to me. Doing those Canadian death tours up in the Indian reservations up there. I'll go and work for Power Uti in Nigeria if he wants me to. I just want to be a wrestling tourist essentially. Fair enough, it's a job, but I'd love to go to these places. All these places I've heard about and read about, and if I can go and do it as a job, is there anything better in the world you can do? No, I don't think so. But
That's what I was going to say. Is there any other, anything left on the bucket list or anything else you want to tick off? I think you've answered it really.
There's people I'd love to wrestle. There's
Yeah,
always bucket list people I'd love to wrestle. I've wrestled two of the best so far. Like I say, if being the best was a spectrum, um, Joel and Mickey are either end of that spectrum. Like Joel selling and his technical work is just next level. Mickey's just charisma and his bumping and his they're just everything the other one's great at. The other one's got something to power it with.
yeah,
Um, obviously, I've had plenty of matches with those two. I've only ever got to wrestle James Mason once in a singles. I've wrestled him a few times in some tags, but um, but I'd love to have another run with James. And see where I am. He's like the measuring stick to me. Like you see where you are with James because he ain't going to talk to you before that match. He's going to call it on the ring. You got to listen.
yeah.
So if you can hang, I don't care how old he is. James is the best. Um, so if you can hang with James, that's a pretty good idea of where you are within your career. Ashton Smith and me have been dying to have a match together for years. I think he is just the perfect white meat babyface where he's playing. He's just absolutely outstanding. But then there's people outside of kind of my circle of people I'd love to wrestle as well. I think more people I think I'd have a really good match with more than anything else. Someone I like to wrestle people that can hit hard, don't mind getting hit hard. Someone that can give me that real, like maybe not so much UWFI esque match. Well, maybe I don't know, but just someone that's just wants to have a good old fight. You know what I mean? I think me and Jay Joshua would be really good opponents. Um, I'd love to have fought Will Cruz. Obviously, he's going away now, and he's a big old boy like myself. Um, there's a few different people I'd love to. Is it what's the kid in progress called? Is it Luke Jacobs or something? I think me and him
Sure now.
would.
Yeah.
I think me and him would have some a good brawl. I think Manders as well. I'd love to wrestle Manders. So there's a few people here and there that I just think because obviously I'm a massive Stan Hansen mark. Obviously, I wouldn't be a cowboy if I wasn't.
I was
So
going to say, what about of all time? If you like those dream matches, who maybe a
oh,
top, maybe a top five
top
or
five.
ish all time dream match like for you? Who would you?
But number one's Kabashi. I mean, no one could could be any other than Kabashi. Kabashi, Flair, Hansen, um, Savage. Like I was always a big fan of Randy Savage. Uh, Masawa. Um, Kenji Muto, like the great Muto, I think as
Oh
well.
yes,
Like
my
there's
cat's.
those,
I named my cat after him.
yeah. Like to me, he was like I think he must have been the first. It was either him or Tatsumi Fujinami. They were the first Japanese wrestlers I ever remember from those WCW
Yeah,
early shows. And I just remember seeing them and just thinking, you are out of this world. I've never seen anything like him. I was just a kid at the time as well, and just thinking, he is. It's just something else I'd never seen before. Later on, you find out he's obviously, just the great Kabuki's gimmick, but like it's still, he was just so good
yeah,
at it. And the amount of people that have taken bits off him and moved it and still do what he was doing years ago, still doing it today. Same with obviously same as Kabuki as well, essentially. But yeah, I'd love to have wrestled him. He would have been, and he only finished a couple of years ago, so it's. But then there's still people still going that I'd love to wrestle that are a little bit older, like Masato Tanaka. I'd love to have a have a rumble with him as well. But we'll see what happens. You never know in
I
wrestling.
know.
You never know what's round the corner. You never know who you might run into, or get put against, or just find yourself in the same place at the same time. This is the thing with wrestling. Whatever you put into it, it will reward you tenfold. If you work hard and you do the sacrifices and you really, really want it, and then you push and push and push and push and push, like anything in life, if you work hard enough, you'll get something out of it. And wrestling is no different to that. Like if you really put into it, you will get out of it.
No, excellent. What about then if someone is listening to this, going off of what you just said, and they're thinking about maybe giving a wrestling a try? Maybe they're in another grappling sport and they think, well, I wouldn't mind trying this pro wrestling. I've done freestyle or jiu-jitsu or whatever. I mean, what advice would you give to someone now who, if someone come up to you and said, I want to be a wrestler, where would you send them? What would you say?
Um, when it comes to people that want to do it, I think, but this is only my personal experience. But I think I've always done stuff, the best of things that I've really wanted it, like have to want it. If you just kind of like, oh, that looks kind of interesting, there's very few people that succeed that don't have a real love for it and a real interest in it. Or haven't had any previous love. I mean, your Kurt Angles and that are complete anomalies. You know what I mean? So I'd say if you are someone that has loved wrestling, I don't care if you're the greatest athlete in the world, you've came from any different sport, or you just someone off the street who loves it more than anything else in the world. If you don't try it, you'll never know. It's as simple as that. I put it off for far too long. I honestly think sometimes like where would I have got if I tried it 10 years earlier, 15 years earlier, and just stuck with it? I see kids coming through now that are in their teens that are gonna they've got their whole careers ahead of them, and I'm so jealous of them. Like, yeah, I just think what I would give to be in your position right now. And I mean, I just think there's one thing that is just I think unforgivable when you're older, and that's just having regrets. If you regret not doing something, if you regret, oh, I never gave this a try and I really should have, then if you've still got time, go and do it. Because if I didn't do it, I'd be a completely different person than what I am. I'm in a completely different position than where I was 7 years ago, 8 years ago. So, like, I honestly think just do it. And if you are from another grappling background, jiu-jitsu, catch wrestling, judo is probably the best one to come from, to be honest. Learning how to do break falls and all that stuff. Um, then it's if you've got a slight interest in it, you can learn to fall in love with something. You know what I mean? If you've got that background, it's going to put you miles ahead of other people. But at the end of the day, I do think you have to love and be really into wrestling. You're going to have that edge over people. You have a knowledge in your brain of things you've seen throughout your entire life you can call back on. Which is why I think I've managed to kind of steer the course and like because I was such a fan for so long that I've got 40 years worth of watching wrestling as a fan. And 40 years of just different promotions here and there where I think, oh, I saw this one time, maybe we should try this. So, like I don't just watch the current product. In fact, I don't really watch the current product. I don't have time to start this. I haven't got time to spend 3 hours watching WWE. Um, so it's yeah, no matter what walk of life you're at, if you don't try it, you'll never know. And if, like I say, if you put into it 110%, it'll give you back that and some change.
Definitely. Now, if anyone is listening to this and they want Bronco Billy Wild on their show or they want to get hold of you, what's the best way for anyone to get hold of you?
Best way is on Instagram, at wildman underscore of underscore weirdside. Wildman on weirdside. Yeah. So just search me on Instagram's the best place. I'm not on Twitter. I'm on TikTok rarely. I post things every now and again. And I've just started a YouTube. So don't know how that's gonna go because I'm not really the most tech savvy person in the world. So I'm going to try and vlog this this little Japan for you and see how we go from there. But essentially, Instagram's the best place. I'm willing to work. I'd love to start doing some more high end indie shows. There's a few I'd love to work for, like Ichiban, things like that, in the UK. So if anyone wants to get in touch, I'll be more than happy to take a message and then we can discuss things from there.
Excellent. Well, thank you for taking the time to join us today. I just want to say, have you got any last words, anything else you just want to get into?
Uh, the one thing I will say is this, because I know he's going to clip this up, and he's because he did this on when someone else did another one. Is if you can just take out all the times I've said Mickey Long's the best when you go in the final legget, so he can't put that into a clip show where he just puts it on Instagram, even though he is the best. I hate to admit it. But yeah, honestly, thank you so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun. It's been great talking about some wrestling with someone. Yeah, I could talk all day, all night, and then tomorrow as
Same
well.
here. Well, no way. It's a pleasure to have you on board, sir, and good luck in Japan.
Thank you very much. Bye bye now.
A massive thank you once again to Bronco Billy Wilde for taking time out of his international wrestling schedule to join us this week. It was awesome having you on the show, and best of luck with your tour of Japan. And we look forward to hearing from you in the future. Now, speaking of the future, we'll be back next week with another guest. In the meantime, you can keep up to date with everything to do with the Grapple of Your Eye at thegrappleofyoureye.com. That is our mothership. You can check out all of our past episodes, show notes, social media links, YouTube links, and everything on there. And remember, everyone, new episodes drop every Thursday at 7 a.m. UK time. If you like to watch, you can view the episodes at our YouTube channel. If you like to listen, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Audible, Spotify, and all the other podcast apps that are out there. Now, it does us a massive favour if you can like, subscribe, review to us, and share us amongst your friends. Help spread the global gospel of grappling that we are trying to help build up here. It really does help, and even little reviews and comments make a massive, massive difference. So please, share us, comment on us, even if you disagree. Tell us you disagree, and we can argue it online like grown-ups. But anyway, I've been your host, Brett Summers. We'll be back again next week with another guest. So stay safe and stay on the mats.